G'day there guys, welcome back to another episode of r/Idontworkherelady. If you love today's content, please do tell me what you think of it down in the comments, smash that like button, and get ready for a great episode. Posted by user, A Bear Sniffed My Head. Titled, Lady talks to the manager about my service, then goes to where I actually work and finds my manager. This happened years ago. I'm male, at Walmart, and a lady asks for help with a heavy item. I talked to her for a while, then continued to do my shopping. I went through checkout, and the lady was talking to the manager, F, by the registers. She pointed at me, and the manager smiled. I walked up to them as the manager explained that he, OP, works at Wendy's. The lady was slightly embarrassed, but we walked out together. I loaded the stuff onto the back seat and talked to her husband that was waiting for her. She kept saying, you know, just like my great-grandmother. The next day, my manager asked if I was the one that helped the lady at Walmart. There are a few of us with the same name, so I do a nice little thing, and this lady goes out of her way to tell my manager about it, and I remember it for the rest of my life. Aw, wholesome. Posted by user Loss/Lon. Titled, He's not a doctor. Yes, he is. I saw him on TV. Not quite sure this fits, but wasn't sure where else it would. So I had a friend since college who's a great guy. I love him to pieces, but I've occasionally considered ending the friendship because his wife is so jarringly dumb. For the life of me, I do not know what he gets from her. Okay, I do. She's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in real life, but even still, I don't know how he does it. She's sweet, she means well, but there are sandwiches more intellectually stimulating. Jesus. A while back, I had a friend visiting, Camden, and she was dropping her kids by to hang out with mine. I invited her to stay for a bite to eat because yes, she's exquisitely dumb, but she's perfectly friendly. Camden's been trying to break into acting, and he recently had a bit part on a TV medical drama. So I brought it up. Camden just recently had a small role as a doctor on this show. She went, that's so exciting, congratulations. That must not be easy to get a job there. So what kind of doctor are you? And he explained, it was a very minor role. I didn't get a specialty or anything. I didn't even get a name. And she laughed and went, well, we all feel that way when we first start, regardless of what job. Just keep working hard and you'll get all that stuff over time. But don't sell yourself short. It's not easy to be a doctor. And he took the compliment and went into how he went about playing the role, the body language he tried to adopt for the intensive care units, that sort of stuff. Then she cut him off and went, actually, you know what? If you wouldn't mind, my son actually had this oblong cyst developing on the small of his back for a couple weeks now. I'd really appreciate if you could take a look. So we both laughed, thinking she was joking. And I was impressed with her uncharacteristically high-level joke. But then she started to call her son over. It's just like her to start a funny joke and then take it way too far. Camden, confused and weirded out by the whole thing, started saying, no, they didn't teach us any of that medical stuff for the part. I can't, help you with this. I jumped in and changed the subject, but she left shortly after. I had long since given up on trying to explain to her why some jokes are funny and others are not, so I thought I'd let it be, even though she seemed kinda miffed when she left. Later, she came back to pick her kids up, and by then, Camden had gone home. As she was leaving, she remarked, it was very rude of your friend not to at least look at my son's cyst. It would have taken him 10 seconds. I hate how doctors think they're above helping anyone unless they're getting a check. Didn't they take an oath to always help anyone who needs medical advice or something? So, as I processed the pure bitterness in her voice, I realized she genuinely and truly thought Camden was a medical doctor. So, convinced I must be misunderstanding her, I further reiterated, No, he's an actor. He played a doctor on that show. You've seen the show. It's not a small production. It's like Grey's Anatomy or House. Everyone knows of it. And even angrier now, she said, "Of course I have. I know all about it. It's one of the best hospitals in the country. Why do you think they put it on TV? Being in the spotlight like that, you'd think he'd try and be a little more professional with people. That's all I'm saying." The surreal mix of entitlement and delusion in her statements left me dumbstruck, and I decided I must be misinterpreting this somehow, because there was no way any grown adult who votes, drives, works, and has kids of her own is that stupid. Not even her. So I just let her leave rather than risk offending her or embarrassing myself. As soon as she was gone, I called my friend, her husband, to try and catch him before she was home. I relayed the whole series of events to him, and his response is, "Oh, yeah, it's a problem, but it's not entirely her fault. Oftentimes those shows use stories ripped from headlines of the actual news, so you can see why she gets mixed up sometimes." She bumped into Camden at my anniversary party not too long after, and asked him, with genuine concern, if a character on the show who had been in an accident, again, on the show, was recovering well. He tried telling her in plainer terms, "I don't work there. I'm not a doctor. I just played one that one time." And she said she was so sorry to hear that he'd been let go, and where was he working now? So if you wonder how our country ended up where we are, know that she has a bachelor's degree from an accredited college and holds a job with several subordinates and has partial responsibility over our city's water supply. So, advocate for education reform whenever you can and enjoy these twilight years of the great American experiment. This can't be real. I refuse to believe this is real. Please tell me you're trolling us. I wish. Other top highlights of hers include remarking on how it's a sign that God loves America best because fireworks always happen on the 4th of July. She thought they were a natural phenomenon like the Northern Lights or volcanoes. Stubbornly insisting on eating an actual rose, not icing, real, off a cake, because if it's on the cake it must be edible, and calling poison control after taking baby aspirin because it's for babies, not adults. Posted by user I am unofficial. Titled, "My Dad Owns This Place." Hey Reddit, this is my very first post here, so if I do something wrong, please don't judge. This took place in China a few years ago. Please keep in mind that I'm not the best in Mandarin, so I will do my best to translate everything. My dad owns a restaurant, and whenever I go back to China, I like to help out there. I did not work there, nor do I look like I worked there. Side note, the restaurant includes places to drink tea, which is very common in China, and a bakery. I was at the restaurant one day, minding my own business and greeting all the staff. Mind you that I was around 12, although my friends say that I look older than that. The waiters and waitresses were all in their 20s and wore a uniform with the restaurant's logo. As a 12-year-old, this event was traumatizing, and I remember most of the details because this event is inked into my brain. I was walking to the bakery when an entitled woman stood up and stopped me. We're gonna call her K from now on, short for Karen. She says, "I want my drinks half off," in a snobby tone. Okay. Aren't you gonna do anything about this? No. She's extremely frustrated and says, "Aren't you gonna do something? I know the owner, and I can get you fired in a quick second. You are an entitled waiter, just walking around like you own this place. Who do you think you are, you filthy peasant?" With tears in my eyes, I say, I don't work. Luckily, my dad heard the shouting and came down. "What's going on here? Who are you?" Mind you that my dad is very humble and only likes to wear plain t-shirts and old jeans. "What did you say to my daughter?" "Why do you care? It's not like this bothers you. You guys are just servants while I know the owner. He can fire you in a heartbeat. I am the owner, and if you look down at people like that, it shows that you are not a good person. Pay and get out of my restaurant." Karen whimpers and nods. Her friends stood up and went inside to pay, and they all left, glaring at Karen. Later, my dad told me that she was just an office worker who worked for my dad's friend's company. That explains the fake Gucci, and she was fired immediately. Her friends, or co-workers, still come here often and never ask for discounts. Again, sorry for any mistakes. I'm trying to keep this vague for privacy reasons. Posted by user Webmarker. Titled, Yes, I work here. No, I won't do side work for you. Not really sure if there's a good place per se for this story, but as this sub's tagline says, sweet Jesus, can people be stupid? Several years ago, I was helping my brother run his auto repair shop. Since he's a better tech than I am, and I'm a better paper pusher than he is, he was out in the shop working on a car, and I was running the office side of the operation. I recall that it was just the two of us. The other employees were out for the day because of it being a holiday weekend. So we were in skeleton crew and catch-up mode, handling some personal and low-priority stuff. A customer came in for some AC issues, so bro checked it over and relayed to me what it needed, and I built an estimate for the customer. I don't recall the exact dollar amounts, but it was a pretty big, expensive job, despite our having among the most reasonable pricing in town. Gave the customer the estimate and he left. Well, left the office anyway. He went into the shop. I watched him for a moment with a "what the hell is he doing" face, before my attention was pulled to a ringing phone. A few minutes later, bro came into the office. Once I was off the phone, bro explained what happened. That customer that left the office and headed into the shop proper had come to him and asked if he'd be interested in doing the repair work on the side. He had said to the customer, "Didn't he give you an estimate?" Customer had replied, "Yeah, but they're too damn expensive here. I can buy the parts if you want to do it." First off, in our state at the time, Florida, auto repair is a regulated industry that requires state licensing, so shade tree work is actually illegal statewide. With some specific exceptions, like fleet maintenance for your employer, you must be state licensed to do any repairs for any form of compensation, including trades. Second, doing side work in the auto repair industry can get you fired from some shops, as by doing so, you're competing with your own employer, stealing a prospective customer, etc. And third, asking the owner of the shop to do side work because you don't want to pay the shop to do the work is probably not going to end well. Bro said that the moment he told the customer, "You do realize I'm the owner, right? The guy in the office is my brother," the color drained from his face and he couldn't get gone fast enough. Never saw that customer again, strangely enough. Posted by user G Karma. Titled, First Mistake, Red Shirt in Target. Note, this happened when I was 18. I'm a girl, 5 foot tall, and since age 16, have always carried a pocket knife with a sort of trigger just for my peace of mind. Also, I've got a huge thing about physical contact and do not like even friends and family initiating any sort of hug, pat on the back, etc. without asking. I was in Target for the first time, and I was by myself. Sort of just checking it out because we'd always been too thrifty to go to Target growing up. I was minding my own business, strolling the aisles with my basket of slightly overpriced herbal tea. I end up in this cool snack section where they had seaweed packets and tossed 2 in my basket when I realized there was a man, mid-30s, early 40s, that I've seen in the same aisles as me quite a few times. No big deal, it's just a coincidence, right? I peruse a couple more sections in the store and eventually end up past the baby and kids section and see the same middle-aged guy sort of hanging back from me, but he's following me with more intent at this point. I'm getting a little nervous, but it's not like anything's gonna happen to me in Target. What's he gonna do? Kidnap me in the middle of a Target with hundreds of people in it? I keep going, and eventually I see the kitchenware section. I stop and look up at the signs to see where exactly I want to look around. Ah, there. I take a step forward, and just as I do, the same man from earlier grabs me by my shirt collar and says, "Excuse me," and without hesitation, I grab my side, deploy my knife, point it at him, and yell back, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" We are right outside an aisle, and there are people around who saw him grab me. He looks shocked, jaw slacked and everything. I repeat to him, again, just as loud and just as expletive-filled, "Who the f*** do you think you are? Why are you following me? Why did you grab me?" He snaps out of it a bit and says, "Are employees even allowed to carry knives? What the hell are you doing? Where's your supervisor?" Now it's my turn to look dumbfounded. I say, "I'm not an employee, and even if I was, do you really just grab people whenever you go? Especially younger women?" At this point, we've got a small crowd, and I feel safe enough to put my knife back in my pocket. He spits back, "Well, if you had been paying any attention, you'd know that I've been looking around you this whole time, trying to get your attention. But you just keep walking off from me. Aren't you supposed to help people in the store?" I say, "Did you hear a word I said? I don't work here." He took a step forward to look down at me and started on about, "All you had to do was say so then. Instead, you pull a knife on me like some psycho bear." He then points out that I'm wearing a red shirt. I'm floored at this. I'm wearing a dark red and plaid long-sleeve harness crop top and black high-waisted jeans. What Target employee do you see wearing a plaid crop top? Finally, someone steps in to help. A tall, burly guy who looked like Duck Dynasty met Sons of Anarchy gets in between us and pushes the guy back and tells him that's no way to speak to anyone, and says, "I saw the whole thing. You grabbed her by the collar. She has every right to be defensive." At this, Creep backed off and Ducks of Anarchy, my hero, tells him to F off. He fires off one last "crazy bear," but walks off towards the back of the store. I sincerely thanked Mr. Hero, as I was truly grateful. Being a smaller person, even with a knife, you don't feel all that threatening. I took my crap straight to the checkout and left. Never in my life have I thought about grabbing a stranger, employee of a store or otherwise, to get their attention. I wouldn't even tap one on the shoulder. If you just say, "Excuse me," or "Hey," you're likely to get the attention of everyone in the immediate area. Maybe I was just raised differently, but I feel like not grabbing strangers is a pretty obvious social no-no. Another note. Yes, I know it's a bit paranoid to carry a knife everywhere, especially into a Target of all places. I know I could have handled this very public situation without taking my knife out, but when fear kicks in, instincts take over. I wouldn't say I regret how I handled myself, but that's just evidently psycho-crazy me. Posted by user, "It's a throwaway, baby." Titled, "You're physically incapable of leaving the store?" I work at a small store on a college campus. We're right across the street from the school's bookstore and are technically a branch of it. Every semester, the bookstore hosts a poster sale outside in a tent. It's completely leased out to a company, and all transactions are done through them. I couldn't honestly tell you what we get out of it, but it's not sales. School started this week for us, and despite the nightmare in America, we're all going ahead with mostly in-person classes. Still, we've had a lot of phone calls instead of in-person sales, and I'm always grateful to the people who do them, since it benefits both of us. Today, I got a call from someone a bit different. Caller says, "Hey, I just spoke with my staff member about the details of the poster sale, and I was just calling you back to see if you could tell me the prices of the posters." I'm sorry, but I don't actually know. It's not actually under our division. We just know the dates and times because of the flyers they asked us to hand out. Well, could you go back and check for me? I'm sorry, but they don't have a website, and all the posters are different sizes and prices anyway. I can transfer you to the bookstore and someone might be able to help you over there? Well, can't you just go across the street and check for me? It's literally right there. Me, incredibly short-staffed and already having a terrible day, say, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't leave the store." "What you mean? It's literally right across the street, I'll just take a second." Me, completely taken aback that this man who isn't even a customer is asking me to literally exit my store to tell him the prices from another retailer, says, "Sir, I'm clocked in over here. I'm sorry I can't leave the store. You literally can't leave the store? Like you're physically incapable of leaving the store? Me, completely done with this day at 11 a.m., says, yes, that's correct. Wow, great customer service. Thanks. At this point, I said thank you, and he told me to have a nice day. I attempted to return the sentiment, but alas, my new friend hung up on me. And just as he was learning the traumatizing boundaries of my workplace prison, maybe one day I will escape the physical entrapment of my store. Edits, I'd just like to add that this poster sale is done entirely in person. They don't ship or hold anything or do orders over the phone, as they don't have a phone. He would have to go inside the tent no matter what. Posted by user Snoo21321, titled, Not a Letter Carrier. I live at a very large apartment complex. Where I work, you aren't allowed to lock up anything, including personal items, so I have a man bag that has locks. I also take my lunch, so I typically have 2 larger bags with me when I go home. I wear a hat because the sun is brutal where I live. The walk from my car to the mail is a good distance. The first thing I do when I get home is check the mail. When I get my mail, there is an envelope that looks odd. I'm standing outside the boxes trying to think where this could be from. Enter Crazy Lady. Crazy Lady shouts at me from about 50 feet away. Have you boxed up all the mail? I shout back, I'm not the postal clerk. What did you say? I'm not the postal clerk. Crazy Lady walking towards me yells, have you boxed up all the mail? I'm not the postal clerk. Then who are you? I live here, and I'm checking my mail. Crazy Lady almost to me says, are you stealing my mail? I live here, and I'm checking my mail. I can see the mail bags. This is my work bag and lunch bag. Crazy Lady 2 feet away says, do you have my mail or not? I live here, and I'm checking my mail. Then why do you have the postal bags? This is my work and lunch bag. Crazy Lady sighs loudly. Have you boxed up the mail or not? No, because I'm not the postal clerk. I toss the strange envelope in the apartment recycled mail bin and start to walk off. She says, this is why I never get my mail on time. You mailmen are the worst. I continue to walk off as the woman just stands there yelling. Posted by user NerdLover2528, titled, I don't work here, lady who works here. This happened to my husband at the annual corporate party for my job a few years ago. Dress code is typically casual, as my job is pretty buttoned up during work hours. It was a buffet-style food service, but for some reason that year they had servers filling drinks and whatnot at the tables where people sat to eat. Instead of waiting for a server to bring us waters, my husband just went to go get some. When he reached the table in the back of the room where the drinks were, he grabbed us 2 water bottles and started to head back to our table. I saw a lady who was a part of the serving team stop him, take the bottles of water out of his hand, and walk away. After she left, he grabbed some more waters and walked back to our table. I asked him what happened, and he said, she thought I worked here and told me table number 15 needed silverware and took the waters out of my hand and left. My husband was wearing blue jeans and a black t-shirt that had Wakanda written in the Wu-Tang font. The servers were definitely all in slacks and button-up shirts with their company logo on them. I have no idea how she thought he was a server, and we still laugh about how table 15 never got their silverware. We didn't see her for the rest of the night, but I wonder if she realized her mistake and avoided us. Note, the drink table was not in a special area, it was open for anyone to walk up to it. Posted by user IaFury203, titled, Literally pulled an I don't work here on a coworker. This definitely isn't the most interesting story, but I hope some people at least get a kick out of this. So to give a little backstory, I work in a hotel that's located behind another hotel owned by the same person. The owner has a friend that used to work at both hotels for 10 plus years, but was let go last year due to not actually doing any work while on his shift. Recently, due to the pandemic and the loss of a few staff members, the friend came back to help out with both hotels for the last 2 to 3 months. Still has the same habits as before, still not doing his work, but hey, at least I'm not pulling doubles. So about a week ago, he called me from the other hotel, in front of the hotel that I work at, and asked for help about a billing issue 5 minutes before my shift was over. I walked all the way over to the other hotel and saw there was no issue and tried to leave. But he kept me there to ask questions that, admittedly, he should have known a long time ago, seeing as he rejoined 3 months ago and had 10 plus years of experience. In the middle of his questions, the hotel phone starts ringing, and he looks straight at me and says, "Can you pick it up?" I gave him the most dead-ass look and had to say, "I'm sorry, I don't work here." Honestly, I have no idea what was going through his head when he asked me to pick up the phone, because I literally don't work there and know nothing about the other hotel. We do use generally the same reservation system, but the rooms and even the format is different. Posted by user Another Night in Jail, titled, "Inmate thinks I'm a new correctional officer and that he can run all over me." I'm a corrections officer in a local jail, and have worked there for 14 years. We're pretty laid back for a jail, but it's still a jail. When an inmate asks for something and gets told no, the answer is no. Having spent the previous 10 years in retail, this is the dream. Also, when an inmate is told to do something, they're expected to do it. I should also mention that my sergeant is very protective of his staff. The cast are me, Sarge is my shift sergeant, inmate is some 20-ish-year-old kid who thinks that he can run over the new guy. Back in 2014, I had a bunch of vacation time built up, so my wife and I took a 2-week vacation to go to Cooperstown to see the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame and watch the induction ceremony. Being a huge Atlanta Braves fan, we had a lot of fun watching Bobby Cox, Greg Maddow, and Tom Clavine get inducted. When I got back to work, I'm doing my rounds, and an inmate approaches me. Now, I don't recognize this guy, so he must be someone who was arrested while I was on vacation. He immediately starts in on me like he owns the jail. He says, "Hey, I missed yard call because I was asleep. I need to go out to the yard now." I tell him, "Too bad. You should have woken up when we did yard call for your dorm. You'll just have to wait for the next one tomorrow." "What do you know? You're just the new guy. Get me your sergeant." Me, trying not to laugh, and knowing Sarge will get a kick out of this, say, "Okay, wait right here." I point to the spot he's standing in, expecting him to be there, or at least close by, when I get back. I finish my rounds and call Sarge on the radio, and say, "Hey Sarge, I got an inmate down here that says he needs to talk to you." "Well, what does he want?" Me, trying to keep from laughing, say, "He thinks I'm the new guy and can run over me because of it. I'll be right there." When Sarge arrives, we both go back into the dorm, and lo and behold, inmate isn't waiting where I told him to. He says, "Well, where is he?" "I don't know." "Hey, inmate, Sarge is here to talk to you." Inmate, still acting like he owns the jail, walks out of his cell and approaches Sarge, and says, "Hey Sarge, I missed yard call and the new guy here won't let me go out." "So, if you missed yard call, that's your problem, not mine or his. Next time we call yard call, get your lazy butt out of bed." Him, interrupting Sarge, says, "But you don't understand." Sarge, interrupting inmate and getting louder, "No, you don't understand. When a member of staff gives you an answer, that is the answer. Furthermore, when an officer tells you to wait somewhere, you do it. You don't walk away." Inmate, trying to make excuses, says, "But Sarge, this new guy." Interrupting inmate again, still pretty loud. "This is Officer Me. You will refer to him as Officer Me, not the new guy. Furthermore, Officer Me has been working in this jail since they put the paint on the walls. So if he gives you an answer, that is definitely the answer. Now, go lock down." The inmate, looking like he feels a foot tall, says, "But go lock down." Inmate goes and locks down, and Sarge and I go to his office. We have a good laugh, and Sarge wants inmate locked down for 3 days for disrespecting staff. But since we got a good laugh and a good story, I convince him to just make it the rest of the day. I later go and talk to the inmate to give him his lockdown paperwork. Turns out, he's not really a bad guy, just pretty dumb, and he apologized. Since he's become a regular, we still get a good laugh about that whenever he comes back to jail. Posted by user Sioigin55, titled, I am more qualified for your job than you are. I'm a head of sales and marketing for a major property developer with 10 years of experience in the industry. Several of those spent at a large competitor's company. Let's call them money homes. They are considered the epitome of luxury due to the huge price tag, and this will be important later on. My team covers all of the capital and a very large portion of the country. Roll on today, since we have only recently opened up and are launching new developments for which we don't have the staff, today was the interview day. Normally, for those kinds of positions, the person would be interviewed by the sales manager for that particular development, sales coordinator, and sometimes one of the sales directors. Since it's a bit of a trek for the sales director to come in for the interview, 2.5-hour train journey when we're supposed to limit non-essential travel, HR asked me to step in as new employees will be reporting to me anyway. Q, 8 applicants we have waiting. First few interviews go pleasantly, but nothing special. Until we meet interviewee number 4. Meet Annabelle. Before she comes into the room, she's sitting in the waiting room area with other applicants, and not only can I hear her go on about how she pretty much has the job in the bag, as she's overly qualified, and the other guys are wasting their time, first mistake, then I can see her shuffling through papers at the admin desk, which was left unattended. Second mistake. She still doesn't realize that our office is behind a Venetian mirror. I can see her, she cannot see me. She hears the admin come back in and scurries back to the seat. It's now her turn for the interview. She comes in, hands me a copy of her CV, and sits down opposite myself and the other 2 members of my team. I look at her CV with a slight half smile, which I think she took as a good sign. So she goes off talking about her major accomplishments at different employers. She tells us that she's actually more interested in being hired for another position at our company, which she can assure me she's more than qualified than our current employee. She then starts spewing out figures of our marketing campaigns, which have not yet been published, and advises me on the results we should expect and what our next move in terms of marketing should be. I advise her that the only positions currently open are for sales staff, but asked her which one she's specifically interested in. She mentions, wait for it, Sales and Marketing Director. My job. My co-workers both look at me in waiting, so I decide to play along. I've asked her what makes her more qualified than our current director. She comes back to the marketing figures point and asks me outright how many applicants are able to predict to a certainty what results you'll achieve, and then leads to a major point on her CV, money homes. So I started asking a little more about her position there. What was her area of responsibility, how long she has worked there, etc. She starts off telling this long rehearsed story of how she started there as a negotiator a few years back and worked her way up to associate director, which is a fancy name for managers responsible for more than one project, and how she eventually became sales and marketing director, but is looking to leave, so discretion is of utmost importance. At that point, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I really wanted to let her carry on, but I just burst out laughing and asked her to leave. She just gets very confused and starts asking what she said that has offended me. With the biggest grin on my face, I then said, "It's one thing hearing you talk down to other applicants when you're supposedly looking for upper management positions, watch you steal confidential information from my admin's desk while pulling the 2 pages out of her hand, which were our marketing reports, and telling me and my colleagues that you can do my job better than me by lying to me about your experience?" She gets offended and starts going off at me, saying that I know nothing about her and she did not lie about her experience, and how would I have known that anyway? Annabelle, The reason I know you're lying is because I was the sales and marketing director at Money Homes during the years you have described, and not only do I know you were not in a managerial position, I know that you were not even part of the department, even if you did work there, as the department was made of 42 employees, all of which I knew by name. I recommend that if you do indeed work there, you contact your director, as I will be filing a grievance against you for stealing confidential documents from their main competitor. Her face went pale as a sheet of cheap toilet paper. She turns on her heels, rips her CV out of my colleague's hands, and runs out the door. Like, does she really think we will not keep her details on email, which she sent the document through? Can't wait to see if I'll be hearing from her or Money Homes anytime soon. Edits. Had to take out a couple of details in my terms of my employment, as one of the colleagues has seen the post and asked me about it. Actual story not changed. Also, Annabelle isn't her real name. Posted by user Unicorn Squad 2689. Titled, No, I Don't Need to Leave. I've never posted on here before, but I found this and couldn't help myself. This happened about 3 years ago. Background. I'm a teacher in a college. This is a further education college, mostly for 16 to 19-year-olds and a few adults studying vocational subjects like electricians, hairdressers, etc., not a university. However, I teach one of only 2 academic subjects in the entire college that many of the students have to take by law as remedial classes. My subject is pretty hated. They're in my class because they failed an exam, and most of them have had really bad experiences in high school, so we tend to be pretty relaxed and used first names. My name is quite long, and students never use it, so I just tell them to use a nickname that's a shorter version and easier for them to remember. The kids and all of the staff know me by this name, even the cashier at the coffee shop. The dress code outside of workshops and PPE isn't strict. We have tutors with multicolored hair, short leather miniskirts, joke t-shirts, etc. We can't wear shorts or see-through tops are literally the only rules I've come across about clothes, but they are really strict about ID. Everyone has a photo ID with either staff or student in big letters and color-coded lanyards that are checked by security when you enter, so only staff could possibly have a staff photo ID. This is relevant later, and a lanyard. Note about me. Apparently, I don't look like a typical teacher. I have 14 tattoos, mostly visible, bright blue and silver nail polish that day, a funky pattern dress, bright blue butterflies that day, leggings, and bright blue slip-on shoes with butterflies on them. I like butterflies. They're in 4 of my tattoos as well. My nickname could technically be used for a guy, but it would be unusual where I'm from. I'm also used to people new to college thinking I'm not a teacher. It happens all of the time at the start of the year when we're setting students up with classes. I occasionally get arguments with my decisions on which class the students will take because parents don't believe I'm a teacher. But I can usually show the policy to stop it, but this was far and away the worst time it has happened so far. So, on to the story. This happened on the second parent-teacher evening of the year in around February. So for these events, each department is given a specific location. As my department is so big, we can't have a room, so we get set up in the open space next to the cafeteria, as it's the only place where we can all fit and still have private conversations with parents or students. So there I was, bored, tired. I'd been there 11 hours at that point, doing my marking, waiting to see if anyone would show up. For the record, I've had 14 parents show in the 6 years that I've been teaching there. Way bigger issue of working in a deprived area doing a remedial course. Sadly, this guy was one. So I'm sat there marking assessments, surrounded by the other 23 tutors in my department, and my manager, as she also has students, when one of my students appears. Shock! He says that his dad is coming in from the car. Am I free? I say yes, sure. Bring him over when he gets here. I'm just doing my marking. A few minutes later, I glanced up and saw my student pointing me out to an older guy who was clearly a relative. The guy walks over and the following conversation happens. The cast are me, rude parent, confused student, and my manager. OT, other teacher sitting next to me, also doing her marking, not speaking, but confused. I say, "Hi, can I help you? Are you the student's father?" "Yes, I need to speak to my nickname, his teacher. Where is she?" "Oh, I'm sorry for the confusion. I'm my nickname. My full name is," and I show my photo ID. "I teach students my subject. How can I help?" No, I mean his real teacher." Now I'm getting confused. I am his real teacher, again pointing to the staff ID. "No, I mean the one who teaches his lessons and marks his work, not his helper. The student gets additional support in class." And I say, "Yes, that's me." "What are you talking about? You're not a teacher. Just tell me where to find my nickname, go away and stop being stupid." Me, suddenly understanding the student's self-esteem issues, say, "Sir, I assure you that I am both a qualified teacher and your child's teacher. But I do not appreciate being insulted." M, my manager, coming up behind, hearing him getting loud, says, "Is there a problem?" "Yes, I am student's father. I'm looking for his teachers, my nickname, and OT. He said they were over here." "Oh, well, yes, my nickname is here," pointing at me, and OT is here, pointing at her, sitting on the table next to me. "Don't lie to me. Look at them. They can't possibly know enough to teach my child. I want to see my nickname right now. Where is he?" "He? I'm afraid we don't have any male teachers by the name of my nickname, and neither of my child's teachers in my department are men." CS, walking over looking worried at the arguing, says, "Dad, what's going on? Did they say something bad about my work?" Valid worry for this student. "Why did you lie to me? Where are your teachers?" Concerned student, looking so confused, says, "This is my nickname," pointing at me, and "this is OT," pointing to her. "Don't lie to me, this stupid girl." I am one of the highest qualified teachers in the building, by the way. "Can't be your teacher. You need a man to teach you properly." Meanwhile, me, OT, and my manager are standing there in shock. CS looking really embarrassed. The student had asked to move to my class. I say, "I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? What exactly do you think we're trying to teach that requires only male input?" Student says, "Dad, they're really my teachers." He says, "No, teachers have to look smart, and everyone knows that the best teachers are men. Why don't you have the best teachers?" At this point, my manager's manager intervened and took him away. My student apologized and disappeared behind the coffee counter until they could leave. When my manager returned, we got the rest of the story. It turns out the guy initially thought I needed to leave or help him because he thought his child was trying to pass another student off as a teacher to get out of trouble. Because apparently teachers can't be young, female, have tattoos, and wear casual clothes. What his excuse for not believing the other teacher was, I'm not sure. She is 15 years older than me, wears a suit, and looks like she just walked out of a corporate office. Next to her, I do look like a hippie student. It seems he thought that I somehow had stolen my ID badge, with my picture on it. A stack of marking and sat down in the middle of 24 other tutors and started marking without any of the other 24 tutors, catering staff, admin, students, or security noticing. Once he realized we really were his child's teachers, he then went into a rant at my line manager and department head, both female teachers in my subject area, about how women were all terrible teachers. They weren't as clever as men and should be at home looking after their own children, not here corrupting his. It seems telling kids that the Titanic was a real ship, not just a movie, and that 9/11 really happened, it wasn't just made up for a movie about firemen, counts as corruption. Though he could have been more ticked about the follow-up conversations about early 20th century poverty and class distinctions, the importance of health and safety, religious expression, freedom of expression versus hate speech, and extremism. I like to have a chat, and teenagers are usually funny. Then he went into a complaint about his child being discriminated against because he was put into my class, not the male teachers. Again, the student had asked to move. Needless to say, my managers were not impressed. and asked him to leave in front of security. This guy then spent the rest of the year trying to make his child do work the wrong way because he didn't believe that his female teachers could possibly be right. Luckily, the student ignored his father, came to extra sessions, and managed to pass my subject. Sadly, the other teachers still had him the next year. The student was already further behind in that subject when he started, nothing about the quality of teaching or effort, but he was asked to bring a different family member to parent-teacher meetings in future, as we couldn't allow parents to abuse the staff. Since then, I've been kind of glad no parents show up for my parent-teacher meetings. Posted by user utsatano, titled, Nearly Arrested for Cleaning Up. So, backgrounds. I work in a high school, but have been out and not allowed to return to my room since mid-March. Also, I look young with my mask on. Without it, you can easily tell I'm in my 30s. So, we finally received our designated times to empty out our classrooms for the summer. Unfortunately, I am just a paraprofessional, not a full teacher, so I don't even know if I'll even have a job in the fall with the school. I decide to go and fully empty my desk of all my personal belongings and extra snacks that I always keep in there. Nothing that went bad, but stuff I keep on hand in case of low blood sugar. It is important to note we have been authorized for casual wear, so many of us show up in simple shorts and t-shirts. Most of my co-workers recognized me with the mask. However, the school recently hired a new principal and police officer the week prior to all of this fun. As I finish, I began to walk out of my room through the halls. I managed to get to a section of hallway near my parked car when the officer comes around the corner and tells me to freeze. The school is closed. No students allowed. Put the bag on the ground and step back with your hands in the air. If you thought you could sneak in and steal some stuff, you are mistaken. I say, I'm employed with this school. As I offer to show my ID, the new principal comes around the corner and joins into this mess. Principal to the officer says, I told you I saw a kid stealing. Arrest him now while I notify the other officers. At this point, the officer has my ID in hand and looks at me. I go to remove my mask and he drops his hand towards his holster and shouts at me not to move. Rather than risk getting tased, I call down the hall to a group of teachers who know me well enough. The officer tells me to stay back, but one of the teachers happens to be the JROTC teacher, who many officers know well, as he regularly helps teach defense classes in the community. Should also mention, he retired quite high in the military, and everyone respects him even more for it. Lieutenant Colonel says, Calm down, officer. He's been here for a year and a half and isn't that damn young. He proceeds to walk over and signal for me to remove my mask. Once the officer sees my beard pop into view and matches it to the ID, he begins to apologize profusely while getting upset at the principal, who has now turned red in embarrassment. I told him it was okay, considering the circumstances, and that I would not be upset or report him. Edit. Sorry for not putting this all in, as it slipped my mind. I am 6'8". Our tallest officers are 6 foot even. None of our officers are allowed to carry firearms anymore. Only tasers, batons, and mace. This is also in one of the most dangerous schools in our state. Posted by user Evanescence Fan J, titled, No ma'am, you cannot return that meat. A bit of background. I used to work for a large grocery store chain in California. Ended up with surgery and now frozen shoulder. So during the time between PT and surgery, I was able to work at self-checkout. No one likes self-checkout. Anyways, back to the story. Me is me, old foreign customer is OFC. Of course he is. Ha. Me, watching people check out items, looking at the screen and fixing any issues, i.e. coupons, weight on the scale, veggies with no number. OFC is from another country. She hands me a bag and says, I want to return this meat. I say, okay, do you have a receipt? No. Okay, no problem. Do you have any issue with store credit? No problem, I get other meat. I start looking at the information on the package. The meat is frozen to the touch and brown. It's a pork roast that has seen better days. I try to scan it, but it won't scan. I say, just give me a moment. Sometimes it doesn't always scan. Okay. I keep trying to scan, but it's degraded. I look at the date, and wouldn't you believe it, the meat was almost a year old. The old foreign customer tried to return a year-old meat to purchase new meat. Our store doesn't take meat that old, and she didn't want to use it. I say, I'm sorry, old foreign customer, I can't take this because it's too old. Why not? It's sit in freezer, I no use. It's almost a year old. We cannot take meat that old. I gave back the meat and told my front-end manager. We had a good chuckle. Posted by user Rock Tall. Titled, I was the boss's son, had an entitled employee on my crew make a mistake. Super long, so apologies. A little background. My father owns a telecommunications repair company, and before that, he worked in the industry for years, and since I hated daycare, I spent every summer helping him, and learning to weld, rig cell phone tower antennas, crap like that. By the time I was 19 and dropped out of college, I decided to go get my certifications and ask my dad for a job. Well, he got a huge contract, and hired 5 brand new guys, with myself and another veteran that's been working for him for years as crew leads to run all the repair projects. I end up with this massive D-bag who got fired from multiple different physical therapy clinics and is now 40 and unhireable by any other industry. But he has a massive superiority complex because he has a bachelor's, and that somehow makes him better than tradesmen. On to the story. Me is me, CL is the other crew lead, DB is douchebag. We are on the first site on the first day of a job for a major client, taking down old antennas and putting up new ones. CL and I drive up to the site after morning meetings at the hotel with my dad and the client over Skype, and we've brought lunch for everyone. CL realizes that he forgot his hard hat at the hotel and tells me he'll be back in half an hour. No big deal. It's a simple job that I've done before with my dad. I drop the sandwiches in the refrigerated server room and go over to DB, who's using a trailer hitch winch to haul a brand new antenna up to the tower to our other guys who are 700 feet up at the top waiting to install it. He's got the antenna about 150 feet up at this point. I say, hey DB, I think you got your fasteners on backwards. The fasteners have to be perfect, because the higher the antenna gets, the more wind, the more tension on the winch. He says, they're fine. No, they're definitely backwards. They're fudging fine. Go the frick away, bootlicker. Guess that was his derogatory for me being the boss's kid. No, they're backwards, and by the time it gets up there, the winch is gonna slip and that antenna is gonna drop. Bring it back down and fix it. I don't have to do crap for someone who's half my age and couldn't make it through a year of college. Only reason you're here is you're daddy's kid and can't make it in the real world. Right as he finishes the sentence, I hear the winch crack, so I grab DB and run both of us into the service shelter, smashing all the sandwiches in the process, while the winch flies out of the hitch mount and the antenna drops like a rock onto the truck, carving straight through the cab and into the ground underneath. So you can't rig right, and you don't have the common sense to put the pin in to secure the winch to the truck. There's no way that was my fault. Not only is it your fault, but now I get to explain to both OSHA and our insurance how we managed to damage over $70,000 in equipment and $30,000 in our client's equipment in the first day on the job. I spent the rest of the day calling OSHA, my dad, our insurance, and my mother, our accountant, to make sure that all the right reports get filed and our asses are covered on all bases. I'm assuring the other crew guys their paychecks aren't going to be affected and that I'll get them more sandwiches. At the end of the day, reports are finished, my dad calls me up and tells me to fire DB for negligence. So I go up to him, and I say, hey, you're being let go. Sorry, but this incident is just something we can't afford to happen again, and since it was obviously, you can't fire me, pretty sure he can fire you, and if you don't believe him, I'll fire you. If you don't believe either of us, we can go see the boss tomorrow. Screw it, let's go talk to the boss. Right now. It's like 4 p.m. by the way. So, we drive 3 hours, interrupt my family's dinner, and then sit there smugly on the couch in my dad's home office, while he literally screams at this guy about costing him $100K and maybe a lost contract, and basically tells the guy he's filing a civil suit for negligence since I specifically came and told him he was doing something incorrectly. What the frick does he know? He's just a kid. I taught him how to rig a winch when he was 8, and he did it right. You're a 40-year-old man who managed to crush an entire truck. Get the frick out of my house. Posted by user Eric Davis 1240214. Titled, Sorry Replacement, I'm not training you. This happened over 18 years ago, but I remember it like yesterday. I'd worked for a law firm in a clerical role for about 3 years. Though not a lawyer, I ended up doing a lot of work that lawyers normally handled, but not for lawyer pay. Anyway, I'd landed my dream job in another field. More interesting, better hours, better benefits, double the pay. I hit the jackpot, and was on my second from last day at the law firm, having respectfully given and honored my 2 weeks' notice. As it happened, I needed to take an extended lunch break one day to handle some business related to my pending new job. I arranged it ahead of time, and even came in 2 hours early to make sure all my work was completed on time. Damn, I was too conscientious. Anyway, my lunch business took me longer than expected, and I returned about an hour later than planned. No big deal, right? I had very little left to do, and only 2 more days at that job anyway. Nope. The HR manager found me as I got to my desk, called me to her office, and fired me on the spot. I managed not to smile and thank her, because I was thrilled to have an extra couple of days off before heading to my new position. I had a little spring in my step as I walked to my desk to pack up my stuff. I can neither confirm nor deny that I was whistling a happy tune. In truth, there was only one thing I still had needed to do on my final 2 days. Though not a lawyer, I essentially took care of all the estate planning clients, wills, advance medical directives, and such. I would take all of the info from the clients, generate all the forms, check for compliance with all the laws, and hand it to the attorney. He would skim it, sign it, and bill his hourly rates for the hours I worked. It was a cash cow for the firm, because I made next to nothing. Anyway, though I was good at the work, the files were rather a mess. Let's just say my system worked for me, but it was eclectic. As I was packing my desk, I left them piled in a box on the floor. Moments before I was preparing to walk out there for the last time, the young attorney, yes, attorney, who had been assigned to take over the part of my work, came up to my desk. He said, HR manager told me to come find you, and you have to show me the estate planning files. She said you'd showed me what I need to do. I had the incredible pleasure of being able to look at him and say with the most sincere and innocent tone, I'm sorry, I don't work here. Then I pointed at the pile of files and suggested HR manager would have to help him. Then I picked up my personal effects and walked away. And, just as sweet as could be, poked my head into the HR manager's office on my way out to assure her that there were no hard feelings, and to let her know that young attorney was probably going to be looking for her. As a paralegal, I can tell you they had you doing paralegal work and not billing your hours, so not earning paralegal pay. Yes, you definitely were a cash cow for that firm, and yet they still treated you like crap. They were mad to lose you. They should have treated you better, promoted you to a paralegal, and given you paralegal pay. It's called creating a career path for people worth being retained. I hope the partners had it out with that HR manager. She was not managing that form correctly. Lol, probably so. They paid me $20 an hour and billed my time at $95. That was early 2000s. It was always just a stop along the way for me. I didn't want to stay, but a tiny bit of decent treatment would have gone a long way. Hell, I might have even trained my replacement after being fired. Posted by user Ligamentary. Titled, You Don't Work Here, Lady. Woman tries to use our store as her own Etsy shop. I worked in a large department store back before there was Etsy or any similar service for artists to open up independent shops. I worked in the back office administration piece, not out on the floor. One day, one of the checkout girls called me over and said they were trying to scan a lady out, but one of her items didn't have a barcode. I figured maybe it had been stuck on somewhere strange, but checked it out and I didn't see anything. In fact, I didn't even recognize the item when I looked to see where I could find a second one to scan, and I knew the store pretty well. It was an absurdly hideous piece of almost homemade-looking costume jewelry, not like anything we offered. I thought maybe we had a new supplier I was unaware of, so looked at the tag, and lo and behold, it was a hand-drawn price tag, so definitely not ours. There were a lot of shops in the area, so I figured someone bought it nearby and it slipped out of their bag, or they set it down by accident, and this customer assumed we were selling it because of the price tag. I figured whoever left it would be back to look for it soon. It was way overpriced, $80 for the one necklace. So, brought it to the customer service and returned to business as usual of counting the minutes to close and regretting my life choices. But as the day marched on, a few more people appeared with similar stuff, some more jewelry mostly. One with a sweater that was actually a sweater we did sell, but with huge, garish rhinestones added on that were definitely not a SKU that we offered. People kept coming to check out with lots of things we actually sold, like makeup mirrors, handbags, and shoes, but all with unnecessary rhinestones, sequins, and beads glued on that definitely didn't come from us or the original manufacturer. So, finally, the manager just had staff do a sweep of the store and collect anything with rhinestones on it, or anything with a handmade price tag, and put them in the lost and found. Though, we did wonder how someone's personal belongings would become scattered all throughout the store, and didn't think they could have really been accidentally lost. Our working theory was that someone got in a fight with their shopping companion and did it out of spite, like maybe a couple broke up, or a sibling rivalry, or something. But we had resigned ourselves to the fact that we'd never know. Our lost and found was a single basket about the size of a TSA security bin at the airport, and there was so much of this stuff that it overflowed past the top, so after a couple of days, we dumped it all in the trash. A few days after that, a middle-aged woman comes in decked out head to toe in sequins and glitter and rhinestones with neon makeup like a 6th grader would wear to their first school dance, and asked to speak to the person in charge, identifying herself as one of your partners. I knew we were about to get some answers to the other day's mystery. I stopped all my work. I was ready to hear how and why she ended up leaving half her wardrobe scattered around, and why anyone would voluntarily dress like that after 40. So I listened to her going at it with customer service, and it became clear that she had bought things here, maybe, unclear if she even paid for them or not, or if she'd just used things from here without even paying for them. She then bedazzled them, either by purchasing them or covertly bedazzling in the store without buying the items. We never did find out which. She then put them back on the shelves and now expected to collect a check after they were purchased at an upsell price that she had added on with her own handmade price tag. Apparently, she had done this with a few stores and was going around with business cards claiming her designs. Bedazzled versions of department store products were sold in big department stores like Karen's Fab Designs, as seen on the shelf of Macy's, Nordstrom's, JCPenney, and more. The manager explained that this was not a consignment store, and she couldn't just leave altered products here for people to buy and expect to split the money with us. She was sure we must just not understand that she had improved the items with rhinestones, thereby making them more valuable, and was shocked when the realization set in that we understood what she was saying, but still didn't want her doing it. She was irate, offended, threatened to break off the partnership that we did not want and did not know we had, and eventually demanded the stuff back. The most senior manager on the floor had come over by this point, not because she had asked to speak to the person in charge, but because she was causing a scene and none of us were sure what to do about being on her business card. Plus, Everyone, regardless of seniority, was equally curious about the rhinestones mystery. And he explained that we had gotten rid of the stuff because she didn't bother to explain this arrangement to any of us, and we aren't a pawn shop where you can hawk personal goods. A major argument ensued. She gave us two choices: go through the dumpster and salvage the things you threw out, or refund me the adjusted, read upcharged, cost of the items you threw out. The manager then gave her two choices: leave or be escorted out by security. The manager did worry that there could be repercussions for throwing out all her stuff, since technically corporate policy was that we were supposed to hang on to lost and found items for several business days. So he offered her some coupons to end things on a good note. She didn't take them and screamed at us that we needed to replace everything and pay for new material to re-bedazzle them. At that point, the manager more flatly insisted she leave. She didn't. Security had to escort her out. To our total shock, she kept telling security she worked here, and really confused them because they had never seen her, so weren't sure if it was because she was crazy or if it was because she was from corporate, i.e. someone who could fire them. We had to explain to security and her that in fact she did not work here and this partnership was non-existent. Again, explaining that she couldn't sell her own products here in our department store. She kept saying, "We can negotiate you a higher cut. That was just my starting offer." So after a bit, the manager just gave up explaining and stopped engaging with her. She tried to come in every day for a week after that, to the point that we even had a security guard stand right near the door to redirect her before she could even step over the threshold. She got in one more time through the fire door, with which she set an alarm off, and we had to evacuate the store. So we let her know loud and clear that the next time the police would handle her. I guess some other stores had already made good on that promise, so she stopped coming. But she kept doing this elsewhere around town for several weeks until she was blacklisted by every store, from the highest end boutiques to the dollar store. I don't know if she didn't understand how stores worked, or just didn't care, but she really created a lot of extra work for us. I will say this: many people were coming to the register to purchase her items, and that department chain is bankrupt now. So she probably has a lucrative Etsy-type store and the last laugh. I remember seeing something like this happen at a Target near my house, before the store was shut down, where these girls were going about trying to sell their homemade makeup kits and asking every woman that walked by, myself included, but I don't wear makeup due to having sensitive skin, if we would buy their makeup for the price of $60. We all said no since it was overpriced, and because they were hanging out right next to the makeup department too, and we can clearly see the same makeup kits on the shelves directly behind them. They kept trying to convince all the women to buy their stuff until a different woman approached and everyone quickly dispersed. The girls tried to sell it to her, only to realize that she was one of the managers of the store. She probably just arrived, didn't clock in yet, because security arrived a few seconds later and removed the two girls from the store. Posted by user The Quarantinian, titled, "Lady is entitled to my assistance, warning, blood." Hospital food isn't crunchy. For whatever reason, none of it has a good satisfying crunch. The crunchiest thing they seem to have is Raisin Bran, and that just doesn't do the trick. And after a week of being held captive by tubes and wires, I was ready for food that was actually satisfying to chew. Finally discharged, I stopped off at a humongo chain grocery store for my craving. Don't judge me, but all I wanted was a bowl of corn checks and freezing ice-cold milk. Handbasket containing my crunchy treat, I was rifling through the milk section looking for the coldest jug with the latest expiration date they had. Yes, at most you can get milk that is only 2 days fresher than the jugs at the front, but I just got out of the hospital, so I was feeling really picky. When she lit up my life exactly the same way that a swarm of locusts blots out the sun. She was wearing some kind of dark, expensive-looking pants and a white, bedazzling white, over-boraxed silk blouse with draping folds that just screamed, "I have more money than you." I was bending over, head stuck in the cooler, and I could hear her talking about how we were out of some organic, grass-fed, free-range, no-hormone, royal cows only that have never seen a poor person, milk. I think this stuff sells for around $12 a gallon, and big grocery stores keep all of that stuff in their pretentious section where freezers are filled with $10 microwave dinners, $6 designer chips, and tiny cans of artisanal spring water carbonated with mermaid farts. At any rate, I'm not in that section. I don't work there, I don't care about her, so I ignore her. Big mistake, on her part. Suddenly, I have a snake hissing in my ear the words, "You will look at me while I'm talking to you," and my wrist is grabbed and pulled. Now, I had just been released from a week at the hospital where I was on, amongst other things, a heparin drip, blood thinner, constantly fed through an IV tube which had been taped to my wrist. Exactly where she now was grabbing me. The tube had been taped down, and while I ripped off the bandages before I left the hospital room, there was still some significant sticky tape gunk in the area. Whatever that stuff is, it usually takes 3 showers and a bottle of alcohol to get rid of all the sticky. What else might stick to tape residue? How about a tramp's fingers? She grabbed my wrist and yanked my arm up, but her fingers happened to stick to the skin a bit, resulting in 2 things. The sensation for her getting some pine sap on her skin, and my skin being twisted far more than she expected. Not that she would have cared anyway. The twisting and pulling of the skin released a bit of blood from the IV site. Just a couple of drops, not really a big deal. But enough so that when she felt the sticky gunk on her fingers, she instinctively wiped her hand on her sleeve, leaving a small trail of blood on that field of spotless white. You know how some people pass out at the sight of blood? I mean, I don't, but she sure did. She dropped like her facade of friendliness if her triple-whipped iced spiced happy no-fat soy mocha at Starbucks isn't served on a silver tray balanced on the back of a unicorn. And that's when the staff started to run up. Typical shouts of what happened. Call an ambulance followed, with Milady regaining consciousness within a minute or so and starting to scream about how I, the store employee, had thrown blood on her, clawing at her blouse, and going into absolute hysterics. Store security had arrived and was glaring at me menacingly, demanding to know what had happened. Fortunately, I had an ace just a few inches up my sleeve. An ace which I played as I said, "This lady grabbed me and it really hurt." Thing about heparin is that it is the only drug that can go into that specific IV site. I needed many other IVs in the hospital, so I had another IV site just a few inches up my arm where they had been injecting all kinds of other things. And that site looked ugly. A bruise the size of a silver dollar, brown and yellow and green. As if a parrot had binged on tricks and Lucky Charms and then threw up in the ball pit at Chuck E. Cheese. Previously hidden under my sleeve, I made sure it wasn't hidden now, and displayed that bruise of honor like a middle-aged man displays a trophy yoga instructor in his convertible. She grabbed my arm because I wasn't paying attention to her, and yanked. She left this bruise, and it really hurts. That, coupled with the hospital armband that I hadn't yet cut from my wrist, seemed to be all that I needed to turn the tide of opinion to my favor. I gave a statement to the police who had eventually arrived, told them I wanted to press charges, got my milk, and headed for the door. A few days later, I received a call from a detective or a prosecutor or somebody, and they told me that they had come to a plea agreement of some kind fairly quickly, and if I wanted to write out a victim impact statement, to have it in within a week. I told them that as long as something went onto her record, I was fine. The crunch was indeed satisfying. Posted by user FireRed91, titled, "A Karen Insisting I'm Her Lyft Driver." For context, I have been a Lyft driver for 4 years, but haven't since this situation started. I don't have my amp in the window, but I still have the sticker on the car. I have an online order for pickup at Walmart for supplies for the incoming hurricane. So I'm driving into the parking lot and am searching for the pickup parking spots. I drive by the exit door, looking for these spots, when I see a woman eyeing my car as she walks out of the store. At the same time, a woman attempts to pull out and nearly hits me, but doesn't. As I start to move forward to continue my search, the woman stands next to my car, yelling and pointing at my car, then her saying, "You're looking for me." I vigorously shake my head no, pull away, and continue my search. After I found a cart guy in the parking lot, he told me they were back the way I came. Crap. So I drive back the way I came, and I can see the same woman standing by the exit, glaring at my car. I avoid eye contact, and finally find the pickup parking. I pull up and wait, eating a bit of my dinner while I do so. As I'm eating my mac and cheese, I hear someone angrily yell, "Are you not a Lyft driver?" from my passenger side. The same woman had walked 5 rows from the exit to track me down. She began yelling and gesturing at my sticker and asking, "Why aren't you picking me up?" I felt at this point that ignoring her would be less than ideal, so I rolled down my passenger window just enough. I looked her in the eye and said calmly, "Ma'am, I'm not working right now." She throws her hands in the air, looks around wildly and says, "Give me a ride." I told her I am not her Lyft driver and suggested she contact her driver through the app. She yells, "Well, fudging great. Where's my Lyft driver then?" I just quickly rolled the window back up as she stormed away. I feel like this shouldn't have to be said, but please double check your app with the Lyft and Uber you're getting into, and don't stalk down strangers in their cars. Posted by user JazzSinger1187, titled, "It's Fun to Be Bilingual." So I had been reading many of the Idontworkherelady posts, and it caused me to think about what I would do if I were the victim. But I really never expected it would actually happen. But it did, and luckily I was prepared. Backstory: I am a 69-year-old US Army retiree who had served much of his career in Germany and speak German almost as well as I speak English. Due to good genes, I look about 10 years younger than I really am. In the small tourist community that I live in, there are a lot of senior citizens like myself who live here year-round, and many have part-time jobs at our local stores, so it isn't unusual to find an older person working in one of those stores. During the summer, we get a lot of tourists with more than a few Karens and Kevins. So I am at the local supermarket yesterday, shopping in the soup aisle, and a nice vertically challenged, short woman about my age was trying as hard as she could to get an item off the top shelf. I said, "Here, let me help," and reached up and got it for her. She thanked me, I said, "No problem," and she walked off toward the checkout. I then proceeded to look at the various cans of soup, trying to decide which ones I would get. Then I heard it, the sound I had heard about, but as of yet, never personally experienced. "Excuse me?" I turned around, and there she was, a stereotypical Karen, and, based on how she was dressed, a summer tourist. Memories of the many Karen stories I had read flashed through my brain, and the silly idea I had when reading them clicked in. "Entschuldigung," German for "excuse me." Karen says, "Where are the some products?" "Entschuldigung, ich kann English nicht verstehen." German for "excuse me, I do not understand English." She looked at me like she wanted to kill me. "What's wrong with you? This is America. Speak English." "Was ist los mit Sie? Was ist sein Problem?" German for "What's wrong with you? What's your problem?" She turned and angrily stomped away. I finished my shopping and went to the self-checkout. She was in line at one of the registers with a clerk. I paid the machine for my things and bagged them, and as I walked by the lane she was in, I said to her in a loud and clear New England accented English, "Have a nice day, lady," and left the store. Being bilingual can be fun. Posted by user Tokyo Diamond, titled, "Sir, I live here. Please go away." First off, I am so glad I finally found someone to tell all my weird, strange, and totally crazy stories on. I love it here. Okay, so on to the story. I live in a mobile home on property that has been passed down for generations. It belonged to my great-grandma, my grandma, and now my mama. So if something was to happen to my mama, the land would go to my brother and I. But since he already has a house with one of my favorite sis-in-laws, the land and house would belong to me. So me and my parents were talking one day, and I mentioned how I was craving some peaches. I usually get them in a jar filled with some sweet juice. Yummy. And Mama said that that's something she's wanted to get for a while, some peach trees. So I got all excited and went to a co-op. If you don't know what a co-op is, it's a place you can get gardening tools, seeds, trees, plants, fishing gear, etc. It's like a mall for us country folks, lol. I get to the co-op and find the peach trees, call Mama, give her the price, and told her there was some plum trees available as well. So I get 1 plum tree and 1 peach tree. I get the plant food and some bricks and other stuff to decorate around it. I get home, and my dad asked if I could plant them because he had to go take a family friend to therapy. Fine enough, I grew up being a tomboy, so I know what I'm doing. I come out the house in my messy clothes, my gloves, and whatever else I need. Now, I already had the stuff laid out in the yard, knew where I was planting them and all, but something in my gut and spirit was throwing me off. You ever get the feeling that you were being watched? Yeah, I had that feeling. I look up and it's a white car driving by mighty slow. Okay, so what's not about to happen is my big ass getting kidnapped in broad daylight. No ma'am, no ham, no turkey, no bacon. Not today. For a female, I know how to take care of myself. I go into the house and get my knife that I keep for protection and stick it in my pocket. I should note that there is 2 entrances in our yard that are connected, so it's like you come in one entrance and can go out the other. I come outside, and this same car came back and pulled into our yard and went out the other way. Okay, now I'm creeped out, so I grab my phone and put 911 on speed dial. I've lived in this neighborhood my whole life, but I'm a homebody. I don't like going out that much. So after I put the phone on speed dial, I put it right next to me on my small table and get started digging my holes for our trees. Soon as I'm done digging, I grab the plant food and the trees, fix them up real nice and straight, and put the dirt back over. Now it's time for me to decorate. My favorite part. I grab my bricks and everything else, and not even 5 minutes of me starting, the same damn car is driving by. But this time it came into the second entrance and pulled all the way into the yard and stopped. Some tall, lanky guy steps out and says, "How much?" Huh? "How much do you charge to do this? I like the work you did. I'm looking for someone to do a job like this." So I'm looking at him all confused and I'm saying, "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't do this for work. I'm just planting in the yard." He gives me a side eye and says, "How do you not do this for work? Clearly the owner of this house paid you to do it. Just give me an estimate. A man like you can do the work." Okay, I know I'm a damn tomboy, but how in the hell do you mistake a female with big titties, a fat ass, and thick thighs for a man? So I look at him all mad and say, 1, I am not a damn man. 2, I don't do this for work. 3, this is my house and you are trespassing. Did you not see the no trespassing sign on the tree by the entrance? Big and black sign with big red letters. So now he's got this "I don't want to hear no excuse" attitude and says, "Look man, I just want a damn estimate. It's not that hard to do. Just come up with a price to do the yard work." Yep, right about now I am ticked to the highest level of pistivity. I remembered I had my phone already on speed dial, so I told him to either leave willingly or the police will be called. The whole time I already pressed dial. This fool really stood there for a second, completely stood out of the car and stood next to it and said, "No." Said somebody was going to hear about how I, who to him is still a man, won't give him service. Then asked this stupid question, "Where is my van or truck with my company name?" Yep, my level of pistivity is going higher. I'm giving the 911 operator my address, and when he said that, I screamed out, "Get your ass off my property." I told your Bear Rilla looking ass that this was my house and that I wasn't a man, bout to get your saggy body built like his pickle ass beat like a damn man if you don't leave. Mind you, I have my other hand in my pocket with my finger on the button of my knife if he tries something. The whole time, he's still standing there arguing with me. A few minutes go by and the police show up, and it just so happens to be a cop I've known since I was a kid. He was my big brother's chief when my brother was a policeman, knew my mama and daddy, and boy was I happy to see him. Soon as he stepped out and asked what happened, I couldn't get a word out before this maniac went ape crap crazy about how I, an employee to a gardening company, cursed at him, true, threatened him, also true, and assaulted him. Whoa now, false. Chief looked at me, at the house, and back at me, and said, "Baby girl, is that you?" I looked at him, took off my garden hat, showed my high afro puff, put my glasses on and said, "Yup, it's me, Chief." Dude's jaw dropped, then looked me up and down. Chief said, "This is a female, sir. She lives here in this house. I know her and her family very well. She doesn't work for a garden company. She and her parents just like to garden in their yard. You have been warned to leave this property because it is private property, and you refused. So now I have to arrest you. You better be glad she didn't assault you like you claim she did. Because for one, with this being their property, they have a right to defend themselves on this property if you're still on it. And two, this girl grew up watching wrestling and wrestled with my boys. She'd kick your ass. Okay, hands behind your back. I'll call for a tow company to come pick up your car." Meanwhile, I'm just standing there, big ass grin on my face. When the chief was leaving, my dad pulled up and asked what happened. I told him the whole story, and he pressed charges because he was on our property. Oh, and now we have fresh peaches and plums that are so sweet, they've given me sugar bumps. Little tiny bumps that come up from eating something extremely sweet and are very, very itchy, lol. Letting everyone know I am not a diabetic. I get tested every month. Why my phone keeps trying to say money instead of month? Must be another stimulus check coming. I've even switched doctors and still don't have diabetes. My doctor has told me that my case of sugar bumps is not severe because I stopped eating sweets like I used to as a child. I don't eat it all day every day. I drink my water, I eat my veggies and anything else. I usually only do sweets on the weekends, but now I only do it if I have a test for it. And on Friday, July 24th, I'm getting me a cheesecake and chowing down because I have a taste for it. Posted by user Wiggle It Loose, titled, "Douchebagette didn't like my answers to her questions, even though I was relentlessly honest." I'm telling you about one event, but I must have a retail face, because I'm approached so often. I wear a suit at work. When I call in at any shop on the way home, I leave my jacket in the car, so I'm just wearing a shirt and tie. I couldn't tell you how many times people assume I'm staff. If they're civil, I'm civil. If they're struggling, I'm helpful. If they're rude, I have fun. The reason I remember this one is because I've said all of these things separately before, but this was the first time I got them all squeezed into one single interaction. It just went so perfectly, it will never happen again. I had called into a large supermarket to pick up birthday candles. I first saw the woman being very rude to another customer for no apparent reason. Imagine Rush Limbaugh in drag. Sorry to put that in your head, she was just impatient and the other customer wasn't moving fast enough for her liking, so she was insulting her. She definitely ranked above a-hole, so let's call her douchebagette, or DB for short. As she turned, I saw the missile lock in her eyes as she spotted me. She galumphed her way over. I decided to enjoy it, and settled on being deadpan literal as a plan. I looked away. She says, "Excuse me?" "Why? What have you done?" "What?" She paused for a second, looking like a dog that had been shown a card trick, then angrily asked, "Can you help me?" "I couldn't possibly know. I don't know what you want." She makes a Tucker Carlson face. Where do you keep your eyelash curlers? I don't keep them anywhere. Yes, you do. I've seen them before. I'm certain I don't. I've never owned any. My eyelashes manage to bend all on their own. I'm more than happy with the bendiness of my eyelashes. Huh? What? No, idiot. I mean the shop. Where in the shop are the eyelash curlers? I haven't got a clue. Why not? I refer you to my previous answer. I never use them. Ugh! Are you trying to be stupid? No, it's effortless. This is insane. Are you going to find out where the eyelash curlers are, or would you prefer that I speak to your manager? I'd say neither, but if I had to choose, I'd go for option B. What? You want me to speak to your manager? Well, no. She shakes her head in angry confusion and says, You just said you did. No, I didn't. You asked me which I'd prefer. If I was offered a rectal exam or a slap in the face, I don't want either, but I'd prefer the second to the first. See how it works? This is a phrase I use with my wife when she gives me crappy alternatives. She stood in silence for a few seconds with her mouth open and the deepest frown. She then built up to a shout with, "This is ridiculous!" I completely agree. Where is your manager? I'm not exactly sure, but my guess would be at home with his family. Ah, you're being stupid! Who supervises you here in this store right now? She actually stamped her foot twice when she shouted, "Right now." I say, nobody. What? Why not? Because I don't need to be supervised. I haven't needed supervision in a shop since I was about 9 years old. Oh my God, it's like talking to the wall. I could see that her shouting had attracted a member of management. She was approaching quickly and saying, "Why aren't you helping me? Why would I?" I think I saw a slight hint of understanding spread across her puzzled face. "You do work here, don't you?" "No." "Why didn't you fudging say so?" "You didn't ask me, until now." The manager arrived just as douchebagette shouted into my face, "You're a fudging moron." Manager says to douchebagette, "Madam, please lower your voice and stop swearing. There are children in the store." And the manager says to me, "What's happening, sir?" I'm not really sure. This woman was being rude to another customer, then she approached me and started to interrogate me about my personal grooming habits. She wasn't happy with my answers and started to spit shout at me. "No, that's not fudging true. I was shouting because I thought he worked here." Manager says, "Whether he was an employee or not, you can't talk like that. You can't abuse customers, and we have a strict policy about abuse towards staff. We don't tolerate it. It's not my fault he's a fudging idiot. If he had..." And she was interrupted by the manager. "Please stop shouting." The manager pressed transmit on her radio and said, "Security, urgent code 4, aisle 14, and asks me, "Are you okay, sir?" "Yes, I'm fine. I just needed birthday candles. Could you tell me where they are?" "What the fudging hell is going..." "Stop shouting. Stop swearing. If I have to warn you again, you will have to leave the store." Manager says to me, "They're on aisle 22. "Okay, thank you." I started to walk away. Meanwhile, DB was still shouting. 2 security staff turned the corner and passed me on their way to DB. I could hear her shouting for another 30 seconds. The next time I saw DB, I was standing at the self-checkout. She was being followed out of the store by security staff. She was complaining into her phone, loudly but unclearly, about the shop, the staff, and some fudging moron, as she left empty-handed. Do you think that moron was me? I was wishing so hard for her to look left and see me, but she didn't. If she had shouted at me, regardless of what she said, I was going to raise my little box of candles and say, "Yes, thanks, I found them." The whole thing was so funny. I almost broke and nearly started laughing when she stamped her foot in time with "Right now." I've been mistaken for staff dozens of times, but I've never had it go so perfectly. Probably never will, and don't expect a sequel. Posted by user, PM me your fine body. Titled, "Wild Karen thinks I work in IT and causes my chest to pop out in a busy store." My username may look like a 12-year-old boy made it, but I'm 20 female. Just to stop the confusion here. I posted this in a different thread but was told it belongs here. My boyfriend is 18 male and Karen is in her early 40s. I was shopping today in Iowa for the first time. I live in Chicago, but I'm staying with my boyfriend until people start having some common sense again in my city. I have an Asian accent, mixed with a little French, and I was talking to my boyfriend when a wild Karen grabbed the back of my shirt. She pulled so I would be face to face with her, but my chest flew out of my shirt in the process because she pulled on my binding cloth that I use on my breasts. The bras that are my size are very expensive, so I started binding them because it's much cheaper and I can move around more with it. She loosened the cloth and ruined it. I had an angry Karen yelling at me for being indecent, and she also said, "Now you have to fix my computer for free because you scared my son with those things." She thought I worked in IT because I look Asian, even though I have a tattoo on my arm that says, "The Asian Mechanic" in bold lettering. The store only sold food, so I don't know how she got the thought. Once my boyfriend noticed my chest were hanging out, he took off his shirt and put it over my chest, then started yelling at Karen about how stupid she was. Imagine having a kid that looks to be in his mid-20s, with scars all over his body, yelling at a woman that is around a foot shorter than him. This happened in the span of less than 1 minute, and I'm still trying to comprehend what has happened. I'm still shaking a bit from it. Dear Lord, that is a mess. I'm glad that it resolved itself. Posted by user Chaos Dinosaur 2, titled, "I can't fix a fence I don't own." This is actually an I don't live here story. A few years ago, I was walking my dog past a rowboat club place where they do races and lessons. Sometimes for events, the parking lot gets pretty full, and it was one of those days. As I walked past the parking lot, an angry gentleman got my attention. Disgruntled rowboat boomer says, "You really need to fix that fence. It's been like that for 6 months." And he gestures to the fence between the rowing club and the house next door, which is broken and has fallen across part of the parking lot. I'm confused, but trying to be sympathetic and say, "I'm sorry, I don't work here." "I know that, but that's your fence, so you need to fix it. Listen, I know it broke because of all that heavy snow we got this winter, but it's been 6 months. It's taking up 2, maybe 3 parking spots. Oh, that's not my house either." He scowls in utter disbelief. "What do you mean that's not your house?" "I'm just walking my dog. I live half a mile away." "I've seen you around here. It's not that hard. You pick up a phone book, you look up fence repair. It's absolutely ridiculous. Every time I come here, it's a giant pain in my ass to find parking." "That's really annoying, but I don't live there, so I can't help you." "Well, she's your neighbor then. Can't you help her to fix her goddamn fence?" "She's really not my neighbor. Like I said, I live half a mile away." "But you talked to her. I saw you talk to her. This has been going on for 6 months and nothing's changed." I realized he just wanted to yell at somebody, so I finally walked away. I wished I threw his phone book comment at him and told him that he should look up any random person and yell at them instead. They have just as much to do with this as me. Posted by user Dag the Bolf, titled, "Smartass Me Deals with a Rude Karen." So as a preface, I may have shared this story here before a while back. I don't remember if I did, but it is kind of funny, so I figured I would share it anyway. Another thing you need to know is I have some severe anxiety issues, but this story happened maybe 6 or 7 years ago, before I developed the problem, so I was a bit more brazen back then. Anyway, I was shopping at the Big Blue store famous for their selection of Karens when I passed by this sweet little old lady. She asked me to grab a case of soda off of the top shelf. This is nothing new because I'm 6'6", and people ask me a lot to do stuff like this. I also live life by the golden rule you were taught as a child. Treat those how you want to be treated. I got the soda for the sweet old lady and asked her if she needed any more help. She declined and thanked me, so I started to walk away to grab the other things on my list. As I was walking down the aisle, looking at my list, trying to decide where I should head next, I heard 2 words shouted at presumably me. "You, boy!" I look up and see this abomination of a Karen sneering at me. She had the classic haircut, probably weighed more than me as an already overweight super tall giant, in leopard print leggings and a shirt that was being tortured by being worn by someone who was most likely 3 sizes too big for it. She had only said 2 words to me, and I already didn't like her. Remember how I said I live by the golden rule? Well, that works both ways. And since she was rude out of the gate, that must mean that she wants to be treated rudely also. I just wasn't exactly sure how to be rude to her yet. "Get that soda off the top shelf for me now. I'm in a hurry." She said that to me while her volume was turned up to 11. So I said, as a smartass, "I don't work here. If you want me to help you, I'm going to need to hear a please first." She shrieked, "Obviously you work here. I just saw you help that other tramp." Wow. Just wow. Now she insulted that sweet old lady after being rude to me. That I decided what I would do, based entirely off of what would be the funniest thing to do. "Oh, I'm sorry about that. Which soda did you want again?" She pointed aggressively at a case of Fresca on the very top shelf. I grabbed the case off the shelf and went to hand it to her. She muttered, "Finally." Right before she grabbed it from me, I quickly put it back on the top shelf, and without looking at her, just slowly walked away to do the rest of my shopping. She shrieked a bit about finding my manager and getting me fired, but I was just giggling to myself. I ended up taking my sweet time shopping, hoping she would show up with the manager, just so she would embarrass herself more. But I never saw her again. I wonder how her family reacted to hearing the story of the rude idiot Walmart employee she encountered that day. Posted by user WaffleCopter2, titled, "No, you don't work here, lady." So, I've never been mistaken for an employee at a place I don't work at, but I did have to tell a Karen that she doesn't work at my store. I work at 7-Eleven, and I've been there for about 6 years now. I used to work the night shift. Boy, do I have some stories from those days. But one that really stands out for this subreddit is the time I had to tell a lady she doesn't work at my store. It was late one night, or perhaps early in the morning, so my cover had gone home for the night. So I was running the store by myself. I had an older woman come in with a younger woman, late 40s and early 20s. So I'm assuming mother and daughter. Mum just so happens to have that Karen vibe to her. She walks up to my counter while I'm taking care of some tasks and says, "Can I use your bathroom?" Now, we don't have a public bathroom at my store. We have a staff bathroom, but it's behind a locked door that needs a code to get in. Naturally, we aren't supposed to let customers use it. "Sorry, we don't have a bathroom." "Well, why do you guys go to the bathroom then?" "Well, we have a staff bathroom, but it's for staff only." "Well, I'm staff, so you have to let me use your bathroom." "I don't think you work here." "Yes, I do. I worked for 7-Eleven 20 years ago, so you have to let me use your bathroom." Again, it's a bathroom for staff only. We'll make an exception for employees that left recently, but even if this lady is telling the truth, she left the company before I was even born. "Look, I'm sorry, but I can't let you use our bathroom." "Well, I want to speak to your manager." It's about 3 in the morning right now, so our manager is asleep. I'm kinda losing my mind here, because this is my first interaction with a Karen in the wild. I'm still relatively new to the company too, so I can't think of any other option right now. So I say, okay, I'll give her a call. I call my manager, and she's very much not pleased. I explain the situation, and she tells me the best thing to do is ask her to leave. I head back out from the back, making sure to close the door behind me. No promised land for her. When I get back to the counter, she has that impatient Karen trademark look about her. I say, I called my manager, and she says you can't use our bathroom. Yeah, right, passive-aggressive eye roll. My manager also said you have to leave. Whatever, if I piss myself, it's all your fault. Thankfully, she didn't raise a huge stink about it, but wow. I can't think of another time I've had to tell a customer that they don't work at my store. Usually if they do, they know the code already, so they can just walk into the back to talk to the boss. So that's my horror story from the days of endless night shifts. I hope you enjoy reading it a lot more than I enjoyed living it. Posted by user Deserted Chicken, titled, "The Time I Was Proven Wrong." About a year ago, I was helping my friend build a computer. So we went to the local computer parts store to buy some components. In the power supply section, we found a few different models that we hadn't considered that had an in-store only sale. So I suggested we walk over to the Fruit-branded laptop stand to read some reviews, because I knew they were connected to the store's internal Wi-Fi network. After a few minutes of reading reviews and comparing prices at other stores, an older man tried to get my attention. At this point, I should note that the employees at this store wear bright neon orange polo shirts, which I most certainly was not wearing. "Excuse me," he asked. "Do you work here?" "No, I don't, sorry. The workers are dressed like him," I replied, pointing to one of the workers, who was helping someone else at the time, but I wanted to point out their very bright uniform, which should be pretty obvious to anyone. "I know, but I've been helped by someone wearing normal clothes once," he said. At this point, he seemed pretty nice about it all, ignoring that technically if I was an employee, I would have been helping a customer, so this guy would still be barging in. So I asked him if I could take a shot at answering his question. He asked what the difference between the Touch Bar laptop and the non-Touch Bar version was besides price. After looking, I told him that it looks like it was the only difference, which disappointed him. Then, someone behind us interrupted us. "Can I help any of you guys?" We turned around, only to see that the worker asking us was, in fact, wearing normal street clothes. The old mate excitedly yelled, "See? I told you they don't all wear uniforms," which I conceded. After that, I palmed him off to the actual worker, and my friend and I walked back to the PSU section, where we carried on with our day, a little confused as to what happened. Posted by user Chubb7199. Titled, "I do work here, but not for you." This took place some 20 years ago, so memory may be a bit hazy, and one or the other details may escape me. I was working as an intern for a manufacturing company that would make car accessories. This was in their global headquarters. Once a year, they would have large conferences with some 200 attendees from the international offices in different countries. This was a 4-day thing that would have almost the entire conference area of the hotel we were hosting in occupied. The large room was set up as an auditorium, and this is where all the presentation related to the best sellers, changes in assortment, novelties, marketing guidelines, etc. would be presented. Then we had 3 more rooms. A relatively small one we used as storage and a back office, and 2 other rooms that had items on display. One room was such that the windows to the outside were floor to ceiling and could open so that a car could fit through them and could be driven in through the fire department access lane that ran outside the building. So in this one room, there were 3 cars that had various accessories mounted in and on them for display purposes. I was on duty to man one of the rooms while opening to the attendees, and spent the remaining time stocking merchandise baskets in the main conference room and giving the hotel catering a heads up when a segment was 10 minutes away from finishing so they could roll out the food and drinks to be ready as people poured out of the main conference room. While the conference was in recess, the attendees were meant to enter these display rooms and look at the items on show as they may have been presented during one of the segments of the conference itself. Many of these pieces were novelties being shown before being released to the market, so they were not meant to be seen by people outside the company. On 2 days where this conference took place, other companies had meetings going on in the other rooms, so the conference area couldn't be closed off from the main hotel lobby, and anyone who wanted to inspect could walk into the conference area. Normally, this was not a problem, because nobody who was not working there would look at a deserted corridor, and when people were out, it was obvious this was a closed group. But one day, during one of the breaks, a family, father and 2 sons, of tourists wandered in, and they went into the room with the 3 cars and the accessories on display mounted on them. It was pretty close to the end of the break, so there was a lot of movement, but they could easily be made out, as children and a man with faded t-shirt and shorts stuck out in a sea of suits. I saw them as one of the kids was making a straight line for one of the cars that had color-changing interior mood lighting and underfloor lighting installed. The color-changing bit was for display purposes, but I digress. As the room was going to be closed off anyway, I was prepared with the key fobs to lock the cars up before turning off the lights and locking the room. Before he could climb in and make a mess with the light system, partially installed so mounting could be visible to the attendees, I shut the car door and locked it, making the kid stop in his tracks and make a face. Before he could run off to the other cars, I dashed over to those and repeated the locking up operation there as well. And none too soon, I may add, because Daddy was already there trying a door and barking at me to open a car for his kids to see. The following dialogue, non-verbatim, ensued. I say, sir, this is not a public display. You and your children will have to leave. Open these cars, would ya? What's the harm in my kids having a look at the pretty lights? Again, this is not a public display. This is a private convention for invited attendees only. Please leave. He was getting really close to me, which was funny because I must have been a good 50 centimeters taller than him. His kids also now went to his side, as they must have sensed something was not right. I decided that the best thing to do was to slowly walk into him and get him out of the door while he argued with me that I should let his kids get into the cars and play with the lights. The conference attendees had already left for the next segment of the presentation in the other room. He continued with me, being so rude, being nasty to his kids for no reason, and I kept repeating that this was all lovely, but that I was working for the company that was hosting the conference, and that the items on display were not meant for the general public. The moment I had them over the threshold, I pulled the conference room door shut behind me, and as soon as it was latched closed, I slipped off to a side and made my way to the waiters that were disassembling the buffet and asked them if they could help me return these people to the lobby as they were not attendees. This is when Daddy went all indignant and told me I had terrible customer service and he will be making a complaint. And I turned around and replied, "Sir, I don't work for you or this hotel. I don't care if you think I'm rude to you and you want to make a complaint about me at the desk. All I want is for you to get lost from a space my company rented and you have no business being in." He then got really upset and started cursing at me, but the waiters took over and escorted him away from the conference room area, and I returned to the back office to put the key fobs away and then returned to the conference room with the cars to check that everything was in order and switched off the lights. As I was leaving the conference room, the manager for the conferencing spaces came to apologize, and I told her that it wasn't her fault and that I hoped the guy didn't cause much of a scene. She didn't reply to that, but told me they would be posting someone at the entry from the lobby to the conference area for the remaining breaks that were planned for the day. Posted by user Waffle Raven, titled, "Woman berates me at 3 a.m. for not doing my job." So, I was working at a supermarket doing night fill, stocking shelves after hours. One night, we ran super late as we were short-staffed. I didn't finish till about 2:30 a.m. After I left, the only place open for food was a 24/7 fuel station across the road that had a Subway. So I said hi to the staff because I was regular and got my sub and put my headphones in while I ate. I was just kind of zoning out as I just finished a 9-hour shift, so I was a little slow. A woman came in and went up to the fuel counter. The server was not there. It was 3 a.m, they have a bunch of other jobs to do out back, and they have a buzzer on the counter. So she's obviously seen me and moves closer. I'm oblivious, listening to my audiobook. I look up when she is towering over me, glaring. She says something, and I take my headphones out. "Sorry? I don't mean to interrupt you." Okay. Now she's glaring full force. "I need you to do your job. I don't care if you're on break." What? I'm still foggy. "I need you to get off your ass and do your job," she screams. Finally, I get what's going on. I lean back and point to my shirt logo. "Mate, I don't work here. I'm from the supermarket across the road." "Oh, don't give me that bullcrap. I'm in a hurry. Now do your job." By now, the server has come back to check on the noise and says, "Hey, my name, is everything okay?" "I don't know, ask her." She does an actual double take. She goes a bit red but rallies herself and glares at me again. She pays for her stuff and then in a loud as hell stage whisper says, "What's he doing here at this time of night? Suspicious if you ask me." Then she leaves. The server shakes his head and we laugh it off. But the best part is a few weeks later, the same scenario at the same petrol place. I'm eating but more alert. She comes in, sees me eating, and goes red. I say, "Hey server, that crazy woman is back." I then nod at her and say, "Can I help you with anything, ma'am? I don't work here, but I know how upset you get with the truth, so maybe I can pretend, do some role play, if that would help." The server then comes out. She buys some gum and leaves, never saying a word, her face bright red. Posted by user, My Yucca is Dead. Titled, "Not only do I not work here, but neither does anyone else." This is my first post on here, so be nice to me if I do it wrong. A bit of background. My house used to be the village post office, and when I say used to be, I mean over 20 years ago. We bought the property 10 years ago, by which time it had been totally converted and no longer resembles a post office in any way, shape or form. The post office is now slightly further down the street in a building that has a huge post office sign on the front and looks nothing like my house. Different size, color, everything. My front door opens straight into the kitchen and is rarely locked. It's a small village and I seem to run some sort of drop-in center for my kids' friends. I was sitting eating dinner this evening with my kids when the front door opened and in walked a lady. I say, "Hey, can I help you with something?" as I walk towards her, forcing her backwards through the open door. She says yes, I have a parcel here to send, as she tries to duck around the side of me to get in. "Pardon? You've got a parcel?" "Yes, it's to be delivered tomorrow." "Well, you'd be best taking it to the post office then," as I almost physically push her out the door onto the street. "Well, obviously that's why I'm here." At which point the light bulb in my head switches on. "Look, I'm sorry. This isn't the post office anymore, and it hasn't been for a long time. The post office is a few doors down that way." Yes, very funny. Now, could you actually do what you're being paid for, and allow me to send my parcel?" "Yes, if you go to the post office, which is just down there," pointing. "I'm sure they'll send your parcel for you. Now, I'm going to return to my children to finish eating my dinner." And I walked inside, closed and locked the door. All the while, listening to her have a strop outside. By all accounts, she found that post office, sent her parcel, and lodged a formal complaint against me, which gave the post office staff some entertainment for the afternoon. I'm really unsure as to what she was thinking. She's not from the village, and as I say, it's a small village. And she walked into what is obviously a house with a family sitting at the table eating when she walked in. Did she think that I'd hidden the post office counter behind the fridge or something? My husband keeps wandering into the kitchen, asking me for stamps or envelopes, or just various other post office type things. That evil bastard. I love it. Posted by user, Daily Special. Titled, "Are you high?" Now, this happened about 2 years ago. Was 23 and inside Target just browsing. On that day, I'd smoked a few bowls, then Ubered to the store. Just casually walking around with my earbuds in when this shorter, middle-aged lady pulls out my earbud and said, "Excuse me, I was talking to you," and proceeded to rant about the youth and our lack of work ethic and blah blah blah. So I stopped her talking and asked her, "Ma'am, what the hell are you talking about?" She then gets real close to me. I'd say in my face, but I'm a 6'4" dude, and her face was about stomach high. As mentioned earlier, I did smoke. Usually, I'm pretty good at covering the smell of my clothes, but I guess my game was off that day. She caught the smell, and goddamn did she go off more, yelling about how an employee shouldn't be high at work, and that's when it clicked. I realized my red flannel and tan shorts was a bad outfit decision. At this point, 2 employees heard her yelling and came over. She turned to them and started scolding them. One of them finally got her to chill out for a second and explained how he had no idea who I was. That did very little to calm her down. Eventually, she was escorted outside with nothing from the store. The manager apologized profusely and offered me a $10 gift card. Good thing too, because I was hungry AF by that point. Posted by user Disco Discordia, titled, "Car in front of hotel does not automatically equal Uber." Now, this was about 2 years ago in Seattle. I hurt my knee, but my husband and I wanted to try a new restaurant. It didn't have a handicap entrance, but it had an entry from the attached hotel. The restaurant ended up being rather crap, and 2 hours later, my husband went to get to the car to pick me up. A black Toyota Camry hybrid. He pulled into the covered drive-thru area and texted me he was there. As I was exiting the door of the lobby, 4 guys, probably in their early 20s, opened each door of the car, front and back, and hopped in. 1 was in the front, 3 in the back. My husband calmly looked at them in the rearview mirror and said hi. Everyone just sat there for a minute until one of the guys finally went, "Oh, this isn't an Uber?" My husband said, "Nope, I'm here to pick up my wife," and pointed to me standing just outside of the car, quizzically looking at the random people who had just gotten in our car. "You probably want to check the make and model of the Uber before you get in next time," my husband added. After a lot of blushing and stammering, they all got out, apologizing the whole time. I hobbled the rest of the way to get to the passenger seat and got in. And say, "Did they think you were an Uber?" "Yep." "They should check the make and model before they get into a car." "That's what I told them." So far, that's the only time that's happened. Posted by user Fake Bat Dad, titled, "Frickin' Lasers." I do work here, lady, but you're not where you think you are. For around 10 years, I worked for a laser tag company. It was a fun place to work and attracted underachievers that would stay for a long time. Pay was okay, hours were flexible, and with myself being the middle point, it went from one group of friends working together to another. An issue arose when another company opened up on the other side of town. My manager at the time left to go to the other place, with most of the other staff being made up of members and familiar faces from my place. This led to problems. The other place seemed to do pretty well for a year or so. Then we started hearing things. Customers turning up for kids' parties and nobody being there. Major issues with timings, overbookings, etc. One story even involved a guy involved in the company shooting a kid with an airsoft gun. This all happened a few years ago now, so before I heard the phrase, a Karen. But this is the only word that suits this person who comes bounding up our stairs one day. My customer service spider senses are a-tingling. Her walk, and then her face, let me know that I'm in for a bad time. She says, "Where can we set up?" "Okay, madam, if I can take the name of your booking, we'll get you guys organized." "Right. I'm afraid we don't have anyone booked in under that name." This is where the fun started. The group who were actually booked in start to arrive. I gestured to my colleague that he should take the lead, as I'm going to be dealing with Karen. I managed to herd her away from the desk and into a side room where she goes off. "This is frickin' ridiculous! I made my booking with..." She mentioned someone from other place, "and now you're telling me I don't have my effing booking? My kids and all our food are outside. You will fix this now." So I have a particular tone for dealing with rude customers I've termed as aggressively polite. So I look her dead in the eyes and say, "Madam, you have made your booking with Darkwing. We are Best Laser. 2 totally different companies." To my utter joy, she refuses to believe this and continues to berate and insist that we host her kids' party. We must be the same company. How would I know the other place's staff names if we were not the same company, etc.? When she's in full flow, I open the door so everyone in the reception area can hear us. I look and realize it's an older group rather than kids who are there, so I raise my voice. "Madam, listen, if you walked into McDonald's and they got your order wrong, you wouldn't walk into Burger King and expect a refund, would you? Now F off." Posted by user Youre1881. Titled, I just wanted to buy a curtain. To show you how long ago this was, I was at a Linens and Things. I was 25, but one of those who looked 16 at 25. But anyway, I had accidentally bought 2 different curtain panels and was returning one for the correct one, but they were out. I was at the register making the return when the girl found the one I was looking for in the computer system and told me to wait a sec while she went to find it. She was the only register open, but I was alone in line, so it was okay. Up walks this middle-aged white woman who stands in line behind me while I was at the register. I was playing with my car keys because I am incapable of standing still. At the time, I worked at an elementary school aftercare program, so I was dressed very casually, and even had some sidewalk chalk on my jeans still. I usually left my job a bit of a mess. The woman behind me is getting impatient and is literally tapping her toe on the ground and loud sighs. I turned to apologize because the cashier left because of me, but before I could speak, when I look at her, she just in the nastiest voice goes, "Well, aren't you going to ring me up here?" My brilliant mind was just so startled, all I could say back was, what? She carries on to say that I've just been standing there while she's waiting to pay. Remember that I am on the same side as she is, the customer side. I tell her that I don't work there, and she starts to argue with me, like rolling her eyes saying, "Oh yeah? So what are those?" She points at my car keys. Guys, in this moment, I was just so confused. A small blonde woman with chalk everywhere and a messy ponytail. I reply, they're my keys. At this point, the cashier comes back, and the woman just makes more noises of exasperation and heavy sighs, as though me and the girl at the register, who was also young at about my age, were plotting against her. I exchanged my stupid curtain and left while giving the lady a weird look. She was already glaring at the cashier though, so I wouldn't be surprised if she was a tramp to her after I left. People are weird. Posted by user Usagi-sama-uwu123. Titled, Crazy Lady Calls Me Instead of the Police. This happened 2 years ago. My parents told me that most of those were people that tried calling the police. My parents told them, "Sorry, wrong number. This is the actual number." I didn't take those calls most of the time, but did I have the bad luck of taking this one? It was a lady, she sounded mid-40s, and she was angry AF. She called the police just to report some sex workers. It went something like this. Hello, I live at street, at building. There are some sex workers in the, lady, listen to me first. They are too noisy and they will traumatize my child. Lady, please. No, I'm not finished yet. Think about my child. He's only 12. I really don't think he was that age. I don't want to see those tramps here in my building. I'm tired and my child is too. I want them gone by now. Can I talk now? Yes, what's the problem? Aren't you supposed to be sending someone to take those tramps out by now? Why aren't you getting your job done? I'm 15, lady. You called a house phone number, not the police. Then why didn't you tell me? You didn't even let me talk. And then she cuts the call. She called again, but my mum answered and told her the number. I asked my mum if it was a lady that sounded mid-40s. She said yes, and I told her the story, and we had a good laugh. Happy face. Posted by user Peppermint Death. Titled, Sitting in a beautician's chair with foil all over my head definitely meant that I worked there. I was at a hair salon getting my hair dyed as the color was fading and growing out. I do funky colors and was currently doing orange. So I was sitting in her chair with that big black cape thing with orange dyed hair in between foil pieces. My stylist was working on something in the back while I waited for the color to soak in. She was also the only one working at that time, so I was the only one in the main store. So lady was waiting at the front counter, around the corner from where I was at. She kept sighing and making noises. Eventually, she went around the corner and very loudly yelled hello at me. When I didn't pay attention, she came over and started yelling at me about how she had been waiting for a long time and I was just sitting there doing nothing. She went on for about 5 minutes about how she needed my help and how selfish and lazy that I was being. The stylist then came out and asked what she needed. The lady just huffed and bitterly told her that her coworker was refusing to help her. When the stylist told her that I was a customer, she yelled that I could have just said that to begin with, even though I told her that several times. She eventually left after yelling about how my stylist should have stopped in the middle of my hair and did hers, as I was just a lazy kid that didn't need their hair dyed and she needed her hair styled for an important event. Yeah, no dice, lady, no thanks. Posted by user Shark Queen, titled, I'm not allowed to buy here. I work in a private preschool. I wear a green badge on a lanyard, and since the pandemic, I usually wear scrubs to work that I can throw off when I get home. Homemade, yay, sewing. Anyway, today I had to swing by a small fart on my way home to pick up some groceries, but mostly to visit the pharmacy and get my mother-in-law some insulin. It's summer and hot. Today I had chosen not to wear a shirt under my scrubs because of the heat, so I wasn't able to change like usual. Still, my crayon and rainbow pattern top and bright turquoise pants look nothing like small fart blue vest and khaki pants uniform, and I'm headed straight home after, so I thought no big deal. I hit the pharmacy first because they close earlier than the rest of the store, and there is always a line. I am up after one elderly gent, and I'm just kinda people watching, going over my list in my mind. Suddenly, I feel a tug on my shirt. This is uncomfortable for 2 reasons. 1, social distancing is still a thing, right? And 2, did I mention it was hot? I'm sweaty as hell. I turn and see this octogenarian Karen, octogenarian, poking her meaty finger at me. At least she had a mask on. You're in line? I look down at the floor, where there is an actual line painted, and say, yes. She clicks somehow, like an insect. That's great. You know, you employees should let us paying customers go first. We have more important places to be. I don't work here, ma'am. Don't you ma'am me, you stupid teenager. I'm pushing 40, by the way. I'm not in that much of a hurry, so I try to kill her with kindness and say, I'm sorry, I really don't work here. But if you're in a hurry, you can go ahead of me. You bet I can. And she practically pushes me out of the way, and I scoot back to the next dot that's 6 feet away. The lady behind her, who's now behind me, gives me a what can you do shrug. So I wait, and she goes up to the pharmacist and immediately starts bad-mouthing me to the woman, who obviously doesn't give a flying fig. She just glances up at me and apologizes to the woman for the wait. The Karen gets her drugs and starts to leave, but suddenly stops. I'm ready for another tirade, but it's my turn, so I kind of step around her. As I do, she starts walking again and leaves. I do what I came to do. The pharmacist doesn't even mention the incident, so neither do I, and then go get my food and also leave. I don't know if she was pausing to maybe apologize to me, or if she had more to say, or just wanted another look and realized she had been wrong. I guess dealing with toddlers all day has made me Karen-proof? She was pretty mild though.